Well, that's silly. Boom! And, sorry guys. There we go. Yep. All right. Shall we try it again? No, we'll just go here. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips, the stream that's actually working today. I'm your host, Anne, and then we have disembodied, much put upon hands Quindy, who is so relieved to see the restream today, and Justin and John, who probably didn't even know anything was wrong. Oh, it's funny because it's true, you know it is. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I had to reprogram my sploosh. I forgot I shot that video. Shot a video yesterday. Yes, hooray for working. Well, mostly working. I had to adjust for my sploosh, right? Oh, man. Yeah, I gambled, Quindy. I didn't re-download my OBS because I knew I was going to have to, it was going to take me like at least an hour or two to set up everything again. So I was like, don't have time. So I gambled today that it would just work. Yeah. Yay for a working stream. Totally. All right, let me shrink my window down a little bit so everybody can be seen and all of my chat is here. Yay, chat. Welcome back. Thanks for following me over to my stream yesterday, guys, when we couldn't get this one to work. We're gonna do the lion head today because I was thinking about the lion head and I want to do the lion head in the NMMs. Yeah, and then if we have extra time after the lion head, we'll get all the rest of the gold done. All the rest of the gold. So yeah, we'll have fun today. Yeah, right. I'm out for the rest of the week. Exactly. Right, exactly. So when I get back on Sunday, I think we get back a little earlier in the day, like mid-afternoon. I should have time to. No, Luca today. He's still like on a high from winning his bronze at World Expo, or they partied so hard that he's still hungover. Bots, I will not be. We were going to be getting our new puppy less than 2 weeks before ReaperCon. So I'm going to be driving the puppy from North Dakota home, and then like 1 week after I would arrive would be like leaving for ReaperCon, and we just can't do that. With a baby puppy at that age, you really can't get a puppy sitter or put them in a kennel. And we don't have, it's just really bad timing. I thought about bringing the puppy to ReaperCon, but that's 3 days of driving on top of it, and yeah, my hips are awful. So my back and everything. So yeah. No, oh, Luca not feeling. He picked up the plague at the con, huh? Yeah, he's too good for us now that he's an award-winning painter. Oh my gosh. Oh, Kernika with the burn. Oh. Poor Luca. Much sympathies. Yes. Yeah, so I will not be at the hold on, I have new pictures. Pup date. Let me get the pup date. I think we have one of everybody, but we don't have great ones of everybody. So Pink Girl. Now remember, this is like a triple breed mix, and this is just the second generation. So this is Pink Girl. Her name is Vex, named after the Critical Role character. And we think she might look a little bit more like the Dutch water dog. She's got that kind of head that looks a little houndy, so we're not sure, but this is very early to be making judgment calls. And then there is Pike, who is the solid black girl. And yeah, she's got a big head and a big snout, and this one's a lot more petite, which is not really our breed standard. So if she continues to be, then maybe this isn't our choice, but she's our solid black girl, lavender collar girl. And then the last one is hiding because she's bashful. But this is Keyleth, and Keyleth is a sable. You can see the sable coloring, probably a brown sable, and she's yellow collar girl. So, and there's my friend Bridget holding the puppy, modeling the puppies for us. I pointed out to her she isn't going to be able to one-hand them very much for very longer. So within the next 3 to 4 days, their eyes are going to open for the first time. And by 2 weeks, between 2 and 3 weeks, I think, by 2 weeks, I think their ears also start to open. So yeah. Yeah, she looks brindled because she's got a little bit of a wave to her coat from the Dutch water dog outcross. But brindle is not anything that naturally shows up in the shepherd breed. We don't have that color. It's a specific gene that we just don't have in the breed. So yeah, so not brindled, but that's definitely a wavy sable. So we'll see how she looks at. I'm interested to see how she looks at 8 weeks. Yeah, more lighting. Well, she does have a wavy coat, which is not typical of Shiloh Shepherds. She gets that from the outcross. So, actually, of all of them, it's Vex who has the smoothest coat. She's very sleek, very straight hair, and that's typical of our breed. So she may have gotten the proper coat texture. So we'll see. But anyway, there's your pup date. Pup date. Yeah, a lot of them have little snow toes. And all of them except Keyleth have a white spot on their chest. And then there are also 4 boy spots, but we're not we're in the running for a girl, so I'm mostly concerned with the girls. Since it's very unlikely that I would take a boy. Very, very unlikely. Alrighty. Like, all the girls would have to be train wrecks at their litter evaluation to make me switch. And I don't think that's gonna happen. Knock on... I don't even have wood near me. Knock on kind of wood? Yeah, something like that. Alright, let's see. There's my rich leather, my lantern yellow, and my pure white. And that's really the only 3 colors that you need for NMM Gold, except you do need a shadow color. So if we wanted to be, like, super efficient... with our NMM, like you can make gold NMM with only 4 colors. So I would use brown liner or rogue shadow, rich leather, lantern yellow, and pure white, and that would give you a perfectly serviceable NMM gold. You can also use a slightly reddish color in the shadows if you want, but you always need to go pretty dark, so you always want to have that liner in there. Well, the World Expo was in the Netherlands, Pendrake, and Luca's Italian, right, guys? $32 months in a row. Wow, thank you. Thanks for the resub. Yeah, Dogfather, you can use the NMM Triad. I made it so that it would be more like training wheels, but that's going to require you to add 2 colors to it. It's going to add you're going to have to add the darkest shadow to the end and the pure white to the other end. Doing it with just these 4 colors essentially lets you cut out, you got to do more mixing, but you don't need as many paints. So the NMM Gold Triad, whenever a triad is in play, guys, it's training wheels. I'm trying to make it a little easier for you by essentially making it so that you don't have to mix. So if you use the NMM Gold Triad, you aren't going to have to do the mixing that I'm about to do. But if you want to use fewer colors and you're not afraid of mixing, or you'd like to start mixing more, then you can get away with fewer paints and still get a decent NMM Gold. So yeah, Italy to the Netherlands, however far that is how far Luca had to travel. So... yeah, exactly. Trash has that's exactly it, Trash. Is the NMM Gold Triad is a no-brainer. It's like, you don't have to think, you just use it, it works. When I use it, I often will change it a little bit, but that's just because I understand, like, what I'm going for and the colors that I want, and so I'm fearless about mixing, but not everybody is, and that's what triads are for. Triads are for people who aren't certain about mixing. And so to get them more comfortable, I'm going to actually zoom out rather than making this all glom together. There we are. And I always mix my darks to the left and then I go to the right. It's just a habit. Yeah, exactly. It's just really useful, isn't it, Korniko? Really, really useful. It's useful for a reason. It's a close equivalent to raw sienna, which is a staple oil and acrylic tube paint painter color. Good morning, Inara. Yeah, I'm not sure if Luca flew or if he took a train. All right, and then I'm going to mix this. So I'm putting a little bit of previous colors into my new colors as I go to the right. There. And I've always got at least 4 drops of paint in the well. And I'm always going to start out, especially because we already have our base coat, I'm always going to start out doing a 2-to-1 thinning on there. He didn't take a train. Yeah. Yeah, whenever we've got a Master Series paint, and again, I did a whole PDF on this a couple months ago on my Patreon, patreon.com/paintingbig. Hey, Quindy, you've got your controls, your commands back again. We did a big thing. I did a big PDF on my Patreon, giving which MSP paints were equivalents for artist colors. So you'll see rich leather being on there. Technically, I think that the absolutely proper mix is rich leather plus a little bit of polished leather, and that hits the raw sienna vibe perfectly. But it's honestly, rich leather's close enough if you don't want to mess around with the mix. And most of the time I'm lazy, I don't mess around. It's the green users. Bum-ba-ba. Bum-ba-ba. Hey, Bob and Julie, we got the stream to work today. Yesterday we didn't get the stream to work. Now what you're going to notice here, guys, is that as I mix these colors together, they're going to look an awful lot like the Triad. Like, look at this. What do I have? I pretty much have the NMM Gold Triad. It's just a little bit different. So why did I do this? Okay, I'm using different pigments for one thing, and my NMM Gold Mid is actually more yellow if I mix it with my Lantern Yellow. It's also a little more see-through, but I don't mind that so much. I want intensity so that when I want my gold to be really rich and bright, I can glaze with this color. This is very close to NMM Gold Shadow. It's just a little bit lighter. Technically, I tend to throw a little bit of my shadow color in there to darken it down, and now it's almost a perfect match for NMM Gold Shadow. But again, it's made using a little bit more of a yellowy load on it, so I like that quality. And then the highlight here is just Lantern Yellow. It's actually closer to Golden Glow than the NMM Gold highlight. I do use NMM Gold highlight for a crap ton of stuff, as you all know, although we haven't dived into it. We haven't really used it or overused it in a while, because for a while there I was using it for everything. I have a whole PDF on that color on the Patreon. This is maybe a little lighter, and it doesn't have the other yellow pigments in it. I could take a little bit of that and make it a little bit richer. But I like mixing this myself because when I use pure white with it, I've got a very, very high percentage of white pigment, and I like that a little bit better. So essentially, as you use the Triad, maybe you're like, oh, I wish this was just a little bit more intensely yellow. And that's the way I started. I started out just adding 1 drop of Lantern Yellow to each of my Triad colors for the NMM Gold Triad. And then I just started mixing because, you know, I was comfortable with it. But if you're not comfortable with it, you don't have to worry about that. Just use the Triad. But yes, I tend to like to tune things myself. I like to mix. I know I can mix a very close, I don't even have all the NMM Gold Triad colors like here on my plate. I have highlight, but I don't have shadow because I know I can mix it so easily. And I don't have midtone because I know I can mix it and mix it a little bit more the way I like it. So, all right, we're going to work on Lion today. Let's get in focus. There we go, Lion. Oh yeah, and Chimera and everybody else. I mean, GW is always late to the party, but because they have a captive audience, their captive audience often doesn't know what's existing outside of GW. I don't know if I ever told you guys this, but I was telling David this story the other day. But guys, my regional manager actually wrote me up when I was working at Games Workshop. Honestly, a write-up in my employee file because I recommended a product that was not Games Workshop, even though Games Workshop did not have an equivalent for it. So that gives you an idea about the extent of the captive audience thing. And that's why telling, you know, the GW audience that, or at least some of the GW audience, that, you know, hey, other companies have been doing this for a while. It isn't going to really make an impact because they don't care about those other companies. Some people start with Games Workshop and then they kind of just realize that there's a whole world outside of it, and they just go crazy and like play in the sandbox. And some people really are comfortable staying with within the GW circle of products, and they're just happy that way. And so for them, it is a game changer because they've never had access to single pigment colors before. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way that they roll. So I'm just going to put a little bit of a rebase coat on this just because I want a little more solid one. Yeah, they're new contrast paints. Yeah, I'm still, I've been playing around trying to nail a formula for creating contrast paints with MSP. But it's a little bit difficult just because. Uh-oh, I scrolled and then paused my chat. No, don't pause my chat. Yep. But yeah, I mean, the easiest way to make a contrast paint out of a MSP is just to use the actual contrast medium that GW sells. They sell it so that you can thin your contrast paint, because if you add water, it breaks them. But you can use it to make any paint into a contrast paint. But it also, the thing I don't like about the contrast paints is they're shiny. It just like, it seems like such a annoying thing to me, but that's because I love my matte finish. Alrighty. So I wanted to get a nice solid base coat, but if you're going to start doing this, do a nice solid base coat. I put pretty much a 1-layer base on this before, and it wasn't quite solid. You can see how it looked just there, how pale it was on that little button, because we haven't done a new coat. Well, Pendrick, they are the largest miniatures company in the world, so they don't have a monopoly, but they're close. For a long time, they were close. Now I feel like things are spreading out a fair bit. U.S. postage rates go up, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if there are single pigments, you can just mix them just like anything. It's not rocket science, but... They have a certain, like, they are definitely a unique beast, though, the contrast paints. Like I said, you can use the contrast medium to make your own. You can use our brush on sealer to make them. I'm just trying to nail down a ratio before I do a video on it for my Patreon. Like a ratio that will work for most, so... But they're an odd beast, right? Because they vary by the color of the contrast paint. Like some of the dark ones I got are really thick and heavy. And others, I know, like the kind of the magenta-y colored one was very lightweight. So they seem to vary. So it's not just, you know, how to make your own contrast paint. It's kind of like, well, what kind of contrast paint are you trying to make? How transparent are you trying to make it? All right, let us get onto this lion. Lion. I am going to block in a highlight. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Except, you know, I tried them, and like I said, they're very thick and goopy, and I'm not a fan. Like, I'd rather just use heavy washes with MSP, I think. But... I could see how if you didn't really, like, if you weren't as persnickety as me, because I am persnickety, let's face it. All right, so the light's going to be falling on this. The head is you can see that it's a round surface, right? It's a circle. So we are going to be painting it kind of like that. Now the muzzle kind of projects out and then drops down. So we're not going to actually highlight like all of it, but we're going to highlight this round forehead area as if it is a circle, a sphere. So we're going to block in just a basic highlight. And I am going to leave a little bit of shadow, our base shadow, just to define features on the head. So like to define those eyebrows and the forehead itself being separate. I'm going to keep the dark inside of the little ears. Yeah, you're going to find one or the other for sure in Aura. And that's red pigments. If you remember, I've talked about this before, but the pigments that are available to today's painters are usually, they're not the old artist pigments anymore, because those materials were in many cases expensive. There are a few that are still around, like the phthalocyanines, quinacridone magenta. Those haven't changed. But the reds have changed up a lot because of the expense of some of the original reds and the toxicity of some of the original reds. So what you are dealing with now is you're dealing with industrial pigments, organic industrial pigments, which are pretty much formulated in one of two ways. They're going to be a warm or a cool. And this is just to honestly make mixing easier and like shading easier, but mostly mixing. Because, you know, you're either usually going to be working with your red up as a warm red where you want to highlight it with orange, or you're going to be working with a colder red that's more toward the purple range. If you're building a purple, you're going to want to use that purple red. If you're building an orange, you want to use the orange red. And industrial pigments just take that extra step for you so you can use the appropriate red to get a good purple or a good orange. Unlike in the old days when you had one red and it made a kind of crappy purple and an okay orange. So it's actually better, in my opinion, that you have either an orangey or a purpley. You need to choose at that point where you are. But that's why that is a thing, is because having one red for everything isn't actually useful at all in mixing. It's not at all useful. It essentially gives you a substandard product both ways, if that makes sense. So the answer is to just ask yourself, you know, what kind of red, which way am I going here? And then go with that. I mean, in most cases, you can use, if you're doing a wash, you can use a purpley wash, and you should. You can still bring up your red toward orange. You know, you just may need to reapply your base coat that's a more neutrally or orangey red over the top to make it work. So the top of here, we're definitely going to get some highlights. So I'm going there. Yeah, so do your basic red, throw a purple wash on it, and then do one highlight, you know, whatever. But, I mean, I think that using the purple wash is kind of should be your default over red. But if you're starting with an orange and you want it, then you use your reddish orange wash. But anyway, that's why that's a thing. It's because industrial pigments are created to make mixing very easy and to get the most vibrant color with the fewest steps and the least use of pigment. So, all right, so we're essentially highlighting all of the everything up top here where the light is going to be falling. On the main, I'm kind of leaving a little shadow tone in there, and I may kind of re-accentuate that. I am going to put a little bit of a highlight down here on the bottom of the little muzzle bits, because there will be some reflected light. And he's got a little bit of a mouth curl back here too. Now, we'll get some M&M out here on the side, but they're going to be, just like hair, it's going to tend to go toward the middle of the strand. So I'm only going to put my highlight toward the middle of the strand on these side ones. And then when it gets down to the under part, it's only going to be on the bottom part, because it's going to be all bounced light or reflected light. I'm using just the same middle highlight, just like M&M Gold highlight, the equivalent. Using that to block in all of these highlights first. Then we're going to pop shadows in. Then we're going to bring in our brightest highlights. And sometimes I will start with shadows. It depends on what I'm working on and what I feel. I'm going to get the lower end of that. I'll figure out the tongue and the mouth in a moment. Hey, War Shadow. But yeah, there is a spectrum yellow on the market. I don't think that anybody has made really a true spectrum red at this point. There are reds that are close. Naphthol red is probably close, but it is definitely an orangey red in my opinion. It's a warmer red. But there is a true spectrum yellow out there. That's right on the line between warm and cool. So we're going to bring up this highlight here. I'm going to grab my mid-tone to blend that in. Well, yeah, Pete Pendrake, that's exactly what I was trying to say, is you can use the easiest way to make a contrast paint out of a Master Series paint is just to add the medium. And you honestly don't even need to add that much anti-shine additive. Like I said, I've been doing experiments with it. I just don't have a ratio I can just throw you guys yet. Once I have a decently reliable ratio, then I'll do a PDF on it. And then I'll put it up on my YouTubes eventually. But yeah, and you don't even, in my experience, you don't even need to add much anti-shine additive because there's so much matting agent in the Master Series paint already that it does counter the GW medium. So yeah, you can do it. You'll just need to mess around. You'll either need, if you don't want to wait for me to mess around, then you'll have to mess around yourself. So I'm going to put a shadow color right under my highlight color. This is actually kind of a mixture of the rich leather and the Rogue Shadow liner. Again, brown liner is perfectly acceptable to use. I just happen to have Rogue Shadow here on my plate, so I'm using it. I'm going to put that shadow right alongside of the muzzle here, underneath the eye. That dark shadow should be anywhere that an upper surface kind of drops away vertically. I'll use it to get my nose blocked in here. I want to make sure I'm focusy. There we go. So shadow, side of the face, shadow underneath that eye. I'm going to put a little bit of dark shadows. Sometimes when you're doing a very intricate surface, you really need to like put in kind of some overemphasized darks, like here and where the creases of the sculpt. You would get a little bit of a line of dark there, right under the brows where I just lined that. And you need to sneak your darks in various places in order to make sure all these little elaborate details still read as shiny. Gonna get a little bit more dark in here, a bit more dark in there. So sometimes you really are just going to use your lining as your dark, but we'll see how this works. A little bit more of a emphasized dark now. Straight up Rogue Shadow. But yeah, it's not like the idea behind contrast paints is new. It's a technique that a lot of painters back in the day, you know, would use, is just to use a really heavy wash over kind of a black and white underpaint. I was doing it. Gosh, one of the Crusaders models I painted had that technique because I was messing around with it. That was long before contrast paint. But I mean, GW's genius has always been handing you the fish, right? Their genius is we want people to do this, but we don't want to give them the steps to do it. We just want to sell them a product that's going to do it with a minimum of fuss. And so that's the brilliancy of contrast paints. It's not that you can't make your own contrast paints. You absolutely can. It's just that it's much easier to just use it straight out of the bottle. Always has been, right? That's why bottled washes are a thing. Thank you, Daffodwear. 33 months. Dang. You guys have been listening to me babble for a long time. It's impressive. But yeah, so whenever you see Games Workshop, quote unquote, pioneer something, always kind of put a little question mark in your head, question the premise, to quote one of my favorite YouTube people. Chances are that technique has been out there for a long time and you could absolutely learn to do it without buying the GW product. It's just the GW product is going to be more convenient. So now I've got that nice dark shadow there, which I needed. I also want to put that on these little round guys here. We didn't really block in a highlight on those little round buttons, but we can do it now. So I'm just going to put a round highlight on this because it's a round surface. I'm not blending it in very well because it's fairly thick paint, but that's all right. We'll deal with it. Now I'm going to use some of my rich leather to just blend that in a little bit. And then I'm going to put a dark shadow right underneath that. So kind of a crescent-shaped shadow around your round little button. Now we fly out tomorrow. I've got a whole bunch of other stuff to do today. Little pesky things. Pesky things, you know, like laundry and packing. So putting a dark shadow around those. Once again, I'm going to use my rich leather to kind of blend that in a little bit. I don't want it to be super, super dark, but it does need to, or I don't need it to be a bold line. I want it to blend a little. Now I do feel like I need to actually blend the top a little bit better. I'm going to grab my mid-tone, that more bright yellow, like NMM Gold Mid, NMM Gold Base. I'm going to paint it over that highlight that I did. I'm going to do a little bit of an under reflection down here. So when you're doing NMM and round, you just start with a circle and then you put a crescent around it and another crescent. You have a dark crescent and then a light crescent. I think I need to shrink my light crescent there just a tiny bit. Pesky, yes, it is a fun word. So my strawberries are starting to finally get strawberries, the strawberries I transplanted into the planter, but they are being eaten already by animals, so I think I'm going to relocate the strawberry plant, which I can do because it's in a window box. Relocate it over to where my fountain is, my new fountain, because the animals are still really wary of my new fountain. They're just like, what is this thing making noise where we're not used to it? So maybe that'll keep the strawberries safe until we get back from our trip. Because they're like getting close, but they're not quite there yet. There, so crescent shadow, crescent highlight on top. We're getting close to doing a really sharp highlight. Actually, we can go in and do that now. We can take our pure white and start to block in our highest highlight. Now here we want to think about where it can be hard with a surface like this where there's so many little areas. But in general, you want to keep those highlights in line with each other. So if I'm going to do top of the brows here, then I need to do the top of the head too. And I'm going to do a couple. So sometimes you go with your gut on this. Sometimes you just need to remember that you need to alternate. But since this forehead is facing up, the entire surface is going to be lighter. However, there's going to be a highlight on the very top of it. There's also going to be a highlight here right before it kind of curves away into the shadow area right on in front of the nose. So I'm doing two white highlights. I'm doing a highlight up on top of the head and the tops of these brows. And then I'm also doing a tiny little highlight right there above the snout. Oh no. Yeah, mine were, I mean, ours were from the person who owned this house before. He had it planted in the wrong place, though. It wasn't getting nearly enough sun or water. So now I have, when I moved them to the old window box, now they're getting a lot more sun and water, so they're much happier. Not even the squirrels want them. Wow. That's sad. Either that or you just have very, very gourmet squirrels. Maybe your squirrels are just really super picky. Maybe they're like, we can get better strawberries over in that other yard. I wish that they would eat some of these darn plums. The neighbor's plum tree has scattered over our backyard. Oh, I have a specific edibles fertilizer mix, but yeah. All right, so we've got some bright highlight here. I need to really figure out where my highlights are going to go. And chances are, since this is such a complex shape, I'm going to have to kind of go by feel and then adjust. So I want one at the end of the snout. I want a band of light. And this is where I say keep them kind of in line with each other, is both the top of the head here in line, but as I move a highlight down these strands here, I'm going to keep them in line with each other so that I can draw kind of a line between these three little highlights. And as I move down, I'm going to continue. So a little mid highlight here, mid highlight here, mid highlight here. Now when I get down here, it's not going to be nearly as high a highlight. Your bounce light is never as bright. So I will actually, I'll take a little pure white, I'll mix it with my previous highlight because I do want it to pop a little bit. But I don't go up to pure white on the bounce light ever. It's starting to get there. Posh squirrels, yes. So you've just distracted them, really. The strawberry starts aren't as good as the bird feeders. Yeah, I used to always have a little little squirrel, actually both a gray squirrel and a little black squirrel that would come and hang out on that side of the house where the fountain is, but I have not seen hide nor hair since the fountain went in. They're like, oh my gosh, something different. Well, and then we'll get the puppy, and the puppy will probably mean that the critters don't come to our yard as much anymore. There we go. So really high, definitely want that strong highlight up there. Once again, down here, we're gonna bring it up, but not up to a pure white. Now, one trick when you've got a surface like this and you just don't want to make it all bright is you can alternate at the corners. So if we bring down light at the corners here, what we can do is we can mix kind of a soft shadow and put it right here. And then work it back up to a highlight at the tip here. So we'll get a little bit more contrast. And if you don't want it to be abrupt, you can blend it in. Do a little wet blend or whatever you got. But alternating makes it kind of feel like it's shimmering. Oh yeah. Chili powder on the feeders. So chili powder just in the mix or just on the feeders? Oh, ReaperCon class is available. Thanks for the heads up, Dogfather. So yeah, everybody run over and buy your, if you're a VIP ticket holder, get your classes. You know how fast those suckers sell out. I will not be there. First ever ReaperCon I will be missing is all the puppy's fault. In the mix. Yeah. I don't know. It depends. Like, some puppies have, like, no prey drive, and other puppies do. But remember, this puppy is, like, her grandparents... Her grandparent was half poodle, half water dog, and those are sporting dogs who are used to fetching, like, birds out of water after you've shot them. So, I don't know that the birds are going to be puppy friends, but yeah, maybe she'll channel the Shiloh part of her ancestry. Shilohs are generally, many Shilohs, I should say maybe even most Shilohs, don't have a ton of prey drive, but we definitely see it on our breed. So there are plenty of Shilohs that are little hunters that really do enjoy chasing prey, but then there are others that don't. I mean, Bridget's line, her dogs did lure coursing. Like, they had some serious prey drive, so I'm betting this puppy coming from those lines is going to have some prey drive. I mean, I already did the class that I think is the most useful, right, Penric? My class for thinning MSP paints I did on purpose for the remote. Because there's, like... The trouble with doing the remote classes is often they'll go up forever on Reaper's Media, right? And I don't want all of the stuff I do up forever for free on Reaper's Media. But I chose that specific class about mixing or thinning MSP paint because I knew it was really useful for everything else I do. And so it's very difficult sometimes if your virtual content is going to be saved. It's very difficult as somebody like me who that's what I do for a living to choose to do something big for free, right? So I tend to shy away from like from that for that reason. Also, honestly, I'm going to have a new puppy. I'm going to be totally focused on puppy things. But yeah, I mean, I could do my color theory class, right? That's the other one that my choosing colors class that people really like, but then I wouldn't ever be able to charge money for it again. So it's always hard. I mean, Aaron Lovejoy runs into this too, right? Because he does a lot of stuff for Miniature Monthly, and anybody who is like giving away content. I give away free stuff now on my YouTube, right? And some people think I'm very silly for that. Like there are painters who teach who pretty much would tell me that I am doing it wrong, quote unquote. But again, I think that the YouTube video is being short and focused. I'm willing to do that. I want that information to be out there for people. So for me, it's always a kind of a, I want, people need this information. I want to make it available out there. Like that's something that will always make me do like a free thing and keep it available for forever. But I always have to remind myself that, hey, Anne, if you want to do, you know, a Patreon thing on this, you probably shouldn't do it for free, right? So now we've got kind of some different ways to do this, where you can do the edge, and you can bring up that edge there with the white and keep all the rest of this dark because it's being overlapped. I could also do a white edge over here, which helps to create the illusion. I mean, all of my pro tip stuff is also free. Think about that for a while. I mean, I've got a lot of free content of me out on the interwebs. So I don't really want to do another online course for that reason. I feel like I give you guys, like, every once in a while, one of the shows I do for this is really like a mini seminar, because I have definitely done some things where I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna teach you how to do this, and I break it down almost like a class, and I mostly talk through the whole stream, and we don't you know, go apart from the topic. So I still, yeah, I'm pretty confident that I've given enough content, and I don't need to go teach another virtual ReaperCon class on top of everything else. Like, maybe an exception would be if I came up with a topic that I feel like desperately needed coverage, like, and that I don't see on the interwebs, and I wanted to make sure that that was out there, so that, just like thinning MSP paints, I use that as a, you know, I reference that all the time on this stream, and people can always go and watch it, which is really nice. So, like, if I came up with another topic like that, where I was like, you know, I'm not going to really, I cover this all the time, maybe on the Patreon, or I cover it all the time on the show. I just feel like it needs to be out there in a stable form where I can refer people, then I might consider doing it again. Yeah, but you know what, Pendrake? I have participated in ReaperCon on an extreme level for 17 years. No, not, yes. Yeah, my first t-shirt is 2004, and that was the first ReaperCon. And I participated, I helped build the darn thing. And then, you know, all of it. So I don't mind taking a year off. Like, part of me is sad because, like, hey, I had an unbroken streak and now I'm about to break that streak. But at the same time, I'm going to have a new puppy, and I'm going to be switching up my entire life because now we have a puppy. So I feel like although it's cool and it would be nice to participate, it also maybe won't be ideal. Maybe it's better to just get me and the puppy into our new routine. But no, I appreciate the thought. You're right. It was would attend a remote NMM class. Just doing little bits here, and I don't want this hard edge, so I'm going to actually do just a little bit of an under reflection here on this edge. Yeah, NMM is something where you can take a lot of classes with NMM and still not completely grok it. Like, it really does, it's a conceptual technique where you're trying to wrap your head around it. And some people, like, it took me a while to wrap my head around it. Like, I had to seriously, like, kind of look at metal in the outside world, and also I had to, like, just practice it a lot, like, and then kind of troubleshoot it and figure out what I was doing wrong or what I could do better, compare it to other, you know, copy other people's paint jobs on it, all that kind of thing. And it's different for every surface, right? Like, the basic rules that I'm following here are the same as I've used on infinite other surfaces, but you're applying them over all these little surfaces here. I haven't done the white highlight on top of his mane. I need to do that. Like, you're applying it on all these little surfaces, and that's what makes it different. I mean, the best thing you can do is break it down into the simplest of steps and practice. Like you can, this is true in anything, right? It's like you can sit and you can read and you can take courses, but until you start actually practicing NMM and like trying to troubleshoot it, that's where you make progress in anything, is when you practice it, make mistakes, and then sit down with your thinking cap on and figure out, okay, where did I go wrong in this area? So here I am actually following the same rules over this entire lion. I'm putting my lightest colors wherever there's an area facing upward or flaring out. I am alternating my bright highlights with my dark shadows and then blending back up to another highlight for bounced light. Even here on this edge, there is a highlight followed by a dark shadow, blending back up to a highlight. I just put in this dark shadow. Now I'm going to blend up a little bit toward a highlight, but these are overlapping, so there will be a shadow here. Like that is the easiest way to think of NMM, is bright highlight, dark shadow right underneath it, and then you blend back up to where the bounced light is. Easiest way to think about it. Once you start getting that grokked, then you can start with the fancy crap. But you got to get those base rules right there. Those base rules. Those base rules will keep you pretty good. Highlight, shadow, back up. This, I'm essentially highlighting this entire thing as if it's just one surface. And I'm just like making the highlights like, you know, all these little highlights. But still, it is a highlight followed by a dark shadow, blending back up to bounced light. It's going to be the same. Then you get, once you've got that, just that basic thing down, then you can start looking at, okay, how does that apply to like a round surface? And I just did a PDF on that too. Round surfaces and cylinders, the difference between the matte surface and doing it as NMM. I just did a big PDF on that for a $10 tier on Patreon. Patreon.com/paintingbig for those who have not been hanging out all the stream. It's my thing. I love my Patreon. I just brainstormed some new topic ideas yesterday. There. So a little bit of highlights. That one looks better than this one. I think my highlight went too small or too wide on this one. Yeah, just study your successful one and try to figure out why it worked. Like, honestly, when I was at that stage, I would put my successful one next to my unsuccessful one, and I would just think my way through it step by step, say, okay, what did I do here that I didn't do there? But it honestly is, guys, like highlight with a dark shadow underneath, moving up to another highlight. Like, that's it. That's boom, that's it. That's the basic NMM. Try not to do crazy stuff like this until you've done some basic shapes. Don't do a dragon, in other words. This is how you do a dragon. Like, if you were painting a dragon in NMM, this is all the crap you'd have to do. Because it'd be all these little tiny scales and some bigger areas and some all this and different like rounded areas and flat areas and all that. So, like, all of the pain, notice how long it's taken me to, like, do this lion, except on a much larger scale because dragon. So for those who are like, don't judge yourself if you're trying to do an NMM dragon and you haven't like really gotten even basic NMM yet. Like, you're overcommitting. And it's not going to, the worse being overambitious with your choice is actually not going to teach you, because you're trying to do it on so many different types of surfaces that if you haven't really gotten the base of the base concepts of NMM yet, because you're switching up the surface so very much, it's actually going to be worse for you, because there won't be consistent rules. The rules will change every time you're painting a different part of the surface. Yeah, photos save you. All right, so now we are looking much more done. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I need to do the white on the top here. It's the one part that I haven't done at the top of the mane. I did a highlight, but you can see it's not pure white. That's always the case though, Kuro. Like, honestly, that's happened to me before, where I'll do like my best X example of X is for like a mini trade or a commission. So I can't actually keep it. It's just like always doing the best paint job on the back side of the mini. Also a thing. And I think that the reason for that, by the way, is that the pressure's off. We do a better job because, oh, this is just a quick one for a friend, and we end up doing a really good, like, awesome job at something on it. Or, oh, this is just the back of the mini, nobody's going to care about it, and you end up doing a better job than you've done the front. And I feel like that's a pressure's off situation, since it's, you know, it's just X or it's just Y. It takes the pressure off of you, and then you perform better than you thought, because when you actually have something at stake, that's when we tend to choke. We tend to get all like kind of up in ourselves over it, and that's why it doesn't turn out as well. That's why I think doing fast painting, like doing speed paint but then stopping and just doing like one part to a higher standard, like I feel like that's actually, it kind of helps with that. Because then you're, oh, it's just a gaming model, or it's a quick model for Reaper Challenge League. But this is a good opportunity to practice my NMM, so I'm just going to do a NMM. And lo and behold, suddenly it's, you know, the best NMM you've done because you've taken the pressure off. So if you find that you don't work well under pressure, and many of us don't, despite what we may think, and by the way, always pulling it out of your butt because it's on a deadline does not mean you work well under pressure. Think about how much better you could have done if you weren't working under that deadline. So be honest with yourself when you figure that out. Yeah, Karnika, for sure. But yeah, if you don't work well under pressure, try doing the whole, you know, do the Reaper Challenge League, do a very fast paint job on most of the model, but then, you know, reserve one part of the model that you're going to do a better job on, and just practice. Take the pressure off and see if you can execute, and if you're learning better, right? Because it's also really hard to learn under pressure. Your brain under pressure is not necessarily always in a receptive learning state. It's interesting because I was actually reading about this in puppies as well the other day, because I have, you know, I have some new puppy training books, and there's been a lot more done in dog psychology and stuff like that since I last trained a puppy. But yeah, dogs have a definite, you know, threshold where they're receptive to learning, but then if the pressure gets too big, then they learn poorly or don't learn at all. And it's the same with kids, and it's the same with humans. So you've got to take the pressure off. Just paint something for fun for you. Something that you don't have to show to the world at all. And play around with it and have some fun. Or do a speed paint, otherwise a speed paint, because, you know, no pressure there. Yeah, I could teach all sorts of classes on psychology around mini painting and getting your, you know, I could do that kind of coaching. It also depends on what kind of personality you are, right? And this is the other thing I think we don't really tackle when we teach a class, is that some people need to stop and think about techniques a lot before they really get them. And some people will be much more the dive in and execute until they get it. And so it's important to know what kind of a learner and what kind of an executor you are, what kind of person you are. Hey, look guys, it's looking like NMM. I just need to do a little bit more. So I haven't done the muzzle and I haven't touched the mouth. And so I need to bring up probably an under reflection on the lower part of the muzzle here. Just to bring up that, yep, that's perfect. Bring up that light. I want to do a couple spots on the tongue, because the light is hitting them just a little bit. And I'm going to bring up that highlight just a little bit more. Well, that's how I got good, Pendrake. Like, that is actually how I got good. I was painting faster stuff for eBay. The first time I started freelancing, I was painting faster stuff for eBay, and I would always slow down and make myself do a really good job on the face. Or do a really good job on the cape and do some freehand or do whatever. And I knew I was selling it, so there wasn't a lot of pressure. But if it came out great, then I learned something. But it's not a class, really. It's just a thing. It's just a thing you do. But yeah, I'd almost love to do a different styles of learning. Like, figure out one topic that you could teach. And one topic that you would totally break down into different ways to teach it, depending on the strengths of the person you're teaching. I'd have to give them a little survey before, though. Or make them take one of the personality tests that's applicable. Or just do a, you know, hey, is this you or is this you? So look, shiny. Now we've got shinies. The lion looks shiny now. Because we've got enough darks and enough lights. And I'm putting a stronger white highlight just on the top of his snout there. We've got his little kitty nose there. I'm going to actually darken down that little kitty nose a little bit. But yeah, one thing I think we don't have right now in this hobby is like coaching that's miniatures painting, like personality applicable coaching. And I feel like maybe that's why I have gone away from coaching in my Patreon, is that like I was dissatisfied with the way that it was turning out. And I felt like, oh, there's little teeths there. I need to highlight those little teeths. And I felt like I was, you know, I was not necessarily doing it wrong, but I could have done it better. I'm perfectionist for sure. And if I'm going to charge you money for something, I'm going to, you know, optimize the experience. So I kind of step back from coaching to kind of think about it. So I'm going to get these little teeths and just pick them up. Little fangs, little teeths. There, now we have teeths. Teeths. I almost forgot those teeths because they blended right in, but now they don't blend in. So that's perfect. But yeah, ask yourself what kind of a learner you are. I mean, most of us kind of already have a clue at this stage of our lives if we do better by jumping in, or if we do better, you know, by reading and thinking about something first and then executing. You always have to get to the execution part, and that's something that people who think a lot, and I have that sort of brain, we fail at that a lot, early in life especially. Because we love to think about it, but then executing is scary. And so if you are a thinker where you just love to think about the concepts around a thing, but you have a problem executing, you got to set yourself up for success on the execution. Like, you got to learn what makes your brain tick, and then you can learn anything. Once you know your brain hacks. There we go. Shiny. You don't think you float. So now we have a very shiny lion, very shiny snaps. Very nice. And then we do have a gold band on the front, so I'm going to actually come in and do a bit of a highlight. This is actually, this gold band counts as a cylinder, because it's a very thin cylinder. It's as if you took a cylinder and sliced a thin slice of it out, and that's the band. And a lot of the band is either hidden or it's in shadow, so you wouldn't even have to bother with it. But you see where I've left a lighter area back here, because that's definitely where the light would hit. I've also left a lighter area right up here, so we can start to kind of map that in. But yeah, if you're a jump in and do it person, then your weakness is probably that maybe you don't always think stuff out before you jump in. So you might be the person who jumps into the NMM dragon, but you've actually bitten off more than you can chew. And lately I've been kind of like studying a system of the strength system, which is you shouldn't really try to don't work on covering up your weaknesses, work on making your strengths stronger. So if your strength is that you learn well when you're in the middle of stuff, then what's important to know is that you are going to hit your head against the wall. It's just the way you learn. And when you do hit your head against the wall, that's when you have to put in your critical thinking and say, okay, well, this wall is here. How can I get past it? Because there are definitely people who, and some of us thinkers like me, get really frustrated with them because they just like run into the wall that we pointed out the wall. We're like, hey, there's a wall there, and plonk. And we're like, but some people learn like that. They learn by hitting the wall and going, okay, there's a wall. Now I'm going to look at this wall and figure out how I can get around it. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you just aren't built the same way as other people, right? Everybody's got their own process. And the people who love to run into walls, your strength, though, is that you execute. You have no fear of execution. You will jump in and do it. Whereas somebody like me, who's like a strategic planner and has a lot of, like I love to deep think, I love to really deconstruct stuff, I love to break it down into tiny steps. But somebody like me can get totally stuck on the execution part. And we're all brain. So your strength then is that you have no fear of execution. And your challenge is to figure out, okay, how can I do this and have the highest chance of success? Like, how can I make it easier for myself to figure out when I hit the wall, how do I work past that? Like, what's my best system? I think there are a lot of people, Kerniko, like you, that just jump in. They just love this hobby. They meet this hobby. They fall in love. They jump in full bore. And maybe their first efforts aren't cool, and maybe they could have learned more beforehand, but they learn faster because they jump in, hit the wall, and then they iterate, right? So if you can figure out which of your personality traits, like for you, Kerniko, I feel like it's persistence. Like, you definitely you've had setbacks and you haven't given up. And that persistence is what will get you around the wall, right? So it's like learning the parts of yourself that it's like, okay, well, I am that person, but it also helps me in X way. There we go. See, shiny. Yeah, watch out for that tree. That's me, the person standing back saying, there's a... That's me. And dealing with people like me can be frustrating. I know. Like, my dog club, oh my God, they're all people they're just running into fences all over the place. And I just want to go, can you not be organized just once? Now, Kerniko. No, it's a strength. Persistence is a strength. And it gets you through the hard times. You should never underestimate persistence. It is the thing. It is a great strength to have. Like, I have a fair amount of stick-to-itiveness too, but mine isn't necessarily get up and go again. It's more a step back, think about it, and figure out what I did wrong and then go again. So I'm much more that kind of person. Luckily for me, although I am a very brain-intensive, thought-intensive person who likes to plan everything before I execute, I have good focus, so at least I'm able to execute when I'm really focused in on something. So for our cylinder, we're going to be a little bit different because this probably isn't actual metal, right? It's probably just a cloth of gold or something strap. So we're doing a little bit of a fade in and out thing. And as long as you still bring it up to white, it's still going to look shiny. If I wanted to give it more of a cloth texture, I could do a stipple on it. Well, then you're a problem solver, Pendrake. You think outside of the box. Like, that's a whole nother personality, right? Because that's good, because you are going to come up with unusual ways to get around something, right? And I can tell even from the way that you engage on stream that you're definitely, when you see a problem, you want to solve it. You want to help solve it. And that's a really useful trait as well, right? We need those people for sure. And you also seem to really like research and like, you know, finding out things, which helps with that, right? Because that's what you need to make that approach work, is you need to be able to understand exactly what you're dealing with, and then you can find the solution. You can make the tunnel. Or a bazooka. Right, yeah. There's a name for that kind of thinking, and I don't remember. And it's not out of the box thinking. There's like a technical term that is that kind of thing, but it might be the strategic thinking, where you're able to, especially if you find that you're able to kind of like consider a lot of options, and then you just like, your brain just discards all the useless ones and leaves you with like a pretty good option. Like, that's a strategic thinking brain. It's actually a kind of a Captain Kirk kind of brain, a la Star Trek, where you could just like kind of intuitively make the right decisions. Is that kind of thinking brain. That's that out of the box, like thinking is definitely Captain Kirk. He wasn't necessarily a deep thinker, but he was a strategic thinker. There. So we got our highlights. Oh, John spilled the beans. Oh no, Justin's baby is on the way. Hey, I picked a good time to go on vacation. Yeah, but then see, but that's the downside. That's the dark side of your ability, Pendrake. Because, like, I don't want to solve it. I'm very happy with the fact that I'm going to miss a ReaperCon. Oh, no, it's my first ReaperCon. I've already let it go, and I'm going to enjoy my new puppy. So I really don't want to add the stress of having to deal with ReaperCon into adapting my life to the new puppy. Because I am a very regimented human being, and when my systems get upended, it's really painful to me to figure out until I have a new system. So the last thing I actually need is worrying about a con commitment at the same time as I've got this new puppy completely upending my sleep schedule and my life. Yes, congrats, Justin. So for me, ReaperCon, not being at ReaperCon, although it is a slight regret, is not a problem. Like, in fact, I knew months ago that this might be a thing, just because of the time when Zam was scheduled to go into heat. I already knew at that point that I might not be able to go to ReaperCon, and the only thing that was left to do is to see exactly when the puppies were born. And then I pretty much knew. But I had already mentally prepared myself that it was going to be a thing. So I'm just going to creep around a little bit more highlights here. But you can see I'm using a little bit of a stippling stroke too, kind of irregular, and with little holes in it, and that helps to kind of suggest there's a texture on the band. Quindy, yeah. Yeah, exactly. A puppy is just like a baby. And David is going to ReaperCon. So, like, if you have any gifts of chocolate, you can send them back with him. But yeah, so David's going to be gone, and I'm going to be the one dealing with the baby puppy care. And, you know, training has to start, all this stuff. Like, it's totally going to upend my schedule. And I'm somebody who, like, disruption is like a big disruption. Like, I'm going to have to just reconstruct my schedule before I can get anything done. So I almost need to finish, like, the next month's Patreon stuff by the time I get that puppy. Because if I do that, then I essentially don't have to worry about Patreon. I can focus on the puppy and get our new schedule going. Yeah, puppies do, Pendrake. Not as bad, though, usually. A puppy will get you up during the night to go outside, though. So when the baby puppy comes, it's more like the other stuff. Like, now I need to make times to walk the puppy. I need to make, because we have a little yard, but that's not going to be enough exercise. So I need to figure out when I'm going to walk the puppy. I need to figure out good times during the day for little mini training sessions that are going to disrupt my other stuff that I normally do during the day. You know, little 5 or 10 minute training sessions for the new puppy so that she gets like her sit and her down and her stay and, you know, all of those basic. Start teaching her to walk on a leash, start, you know, all this stuff. It's not sense. It's that a baby puppy can only hold its bladder for a certain number of hours. Overnight, some of them can go like 4 or 5, 6 hours. Some of them are really good, especially if you don't let them drink water right up till bedtime. But their bladders just physically cannot hold that long. In fact, when the puppy is awake, like during daytime hours, when the puppy is active, the puppy, the rule of thumb is 1 hour for every month of life plus 1. So at 2 months old, 8 weeks, a puppy can hold its bladder for 3 hours before it absolutely must go out. And so you can see how that's frequent outs. And then as your dog gets older, they can hold it for 8 hours. You know, maybe it's not very comfortable, but they can. Yeah, exactly. Humans take longer. Puppies, that's why I'm like the first month. The first month is the most disruptive. And then you've got it figured out, right? Usually you've got your routine. So that's nice and shiny looking. And now I'm going to add a little bit here on the back of these little ribbons. Yeah, right, Quindy, exactly right. Yes, so it's actually physical limitations. Puppies just take a while, just like humans. Yeah, I can't hold it for freaking 8 hours, so why should a puppy? So yeah, so I'll be getting up in the middle of the night to let the puppy out, and then hoping I can get back to sleep. So we don't want to go up with as much light here. We can add in a little bit more, but we want to generally blend it because as it gets close to the brim here, it's going to get darker. So I need to watch my, there. Just want a little bit of light because this is the interior and the light is coming here. So if the light's coming from this angle, then it's not really, you're only going to get reflected light back here, so you don't need a lot. So we've got our front of our hatband, the back of our hatband. Yeah, that's, you got him a little older though, right, Dogfather? Like, didn't you get the puppy at like 12 weeks old? 14? Or did you get in and get your puppy at 8 weeks? But yeah, so I don't know how my puppy will be or how disruptive or non-disruptive she'll be until I get her home. And that's part of what, you know, you don't know what to expect. So it's going to disrupt your work schedule and your life in general. And then you figure each other out. You and the puppy, you know, spend some time figuring each other out. Do a little line there just because I needed one. Shiny, shiny, shiny. Yay, shiny. Yeah, 10 weeks. Okay, so not too much more. Yeah, that's really good. Some pups can hold it. Like, absolutely, some pups can hold it. But I never assume, right? I'm always going to assume the puppy's going to get me up at night because it's much better to just be prepared for it. That was part of why I made the decision not to go to ReaperCon also, by the way, because being in a hotel where you have to take the puppy down 8 flights, you know, like 8 floors, you have to get in the freaking elevator to get your puppy down to the base floor and then outside. Just too stressful for Anne to deal with. If we had like been getting like an Airbnb or something, then that would be much better. But we totally did not highlight these little guys. There we go. So a little lace, a little gold, and we've got this button on top here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel that. But yeah, I'm just assuming I'll have to get up once during the night to let the little pupper out. And like you, I'm up anyway, you know, at least once, so usually. So just a little bit. Sometimes for these small areas, you really don't need to do the whole 9 yards. You just need to set up where your bright highlight's going to be and get the shadows at either end just to show where the light's coming. So sometimes you just generalize. Sometimes you don't actually do all the NMM steps, or you kind of simplify them. If you're doing a really intricate area, but it's not very important to the model, it's just kind of there, like this little connector on the shoulder. So I'll line to put my dark in here. I'll line between those little strips there and around to the back. I gotta watch it because, you know, you can see that there's shadow being cast a bit here, and the hat's gonna cast a shadow too. So when I put the hat on, you can really see that only the front of that button where I highlighted it and the front of here are really getting light. The back side here is in shadow. So I want to keep that in mind, but I still want to add a little tiny highlight back there, just a little bit of light, reflected light. You should always hug your pupper. Like, there should be no excuse not to hug your pupper. You gotta hug your pupper while your pupper's with you. I'm very determined to spend lots of quality time with this pupper because I feel like having a lot of dogs meant that Kiri didn't get the quality time with me that she could have had. And I regret that. So the new pupper and I will definitely have some good times. It would be nice to only have one pupper. I need to download some videos too to watch on the plane and on our trip. I got some dog videos to peruse. It's fun. It'll be, I'm nervous. I'm just like, I always worry about messing up a new puppy. And after raising so many of them, like, to be decent dogs, I shouldn't, but the puppy is an unknown quantity. So again, a little bit of a shadow here underneath the rim here. We're gonna have a highlight, shadow, and then up to a reflection. You'd want a low prey drive, very tolerant dog. Although, you know, Kiri had higher prey drive and she still played with Panther all the time. Pack animals that are in the pack are a different proposition. There we go. Just a little bit more light in there. I'm going to bring it up the front just a little bit more. Newfies are lovely, except for the drool. There we go. And a little bit up here on top. We're almost to the point where we can start on the wool. There we go. Excellent. I can do the earring here. So the earring, you can kind of see where the light is falling, right? So if I turn it the right way, we can see the light goes right around to here, then it starts to drop off. So right away, we're gonna take our highlight and we're gonna paint that in. So we're gonna paint in that light right in there, and the fact that it goes all the way up here. First of all, just paint it like anything else, just highlight the area where the light is falling. So like so, but we also can see that it hits the inner ring down here, hits the inside, like so. Then I'm going to put my white highlight right above where this drops away, and maybe a little bit in the center down here. I've already got a pretty dark shadow there. Hey, Corsair. Borg. Hello, I would like to acknowledge your presence. Get a little bit of a shadow in there. Now, the sharper the demarcation line here, the more shiny this surface is going to look. And I've decided I don't want it quite that shiny. So I'm actually going to grab some of my mid-tone and highlight, and I'm going to pull this down a little bit. Blend it in just a little bit more. See, Wonder of Wonders, I actually started on time today because I was like paranoid about the stream not starting up. And now we don't have a Luca. Like, you know, I'm always most prepared for Luca when there is no Luca. It's part of his evil plan. Get a little bit of a darker shadow here. So we still need our dark shadow. If we don't want it to be a super like tight horizon line, we just need to make sure we're blending down into that. There, and then we do need a little bit of under reflection on the underside of that earring. Now, my back's acting up, and I has been acting up lately, and I took a muscle relaxer last night, so I don't want to push it too far on the stream here. Plus, I have like laundry to do and errands to run before we leave, and all that kind of thing. You know how it goes. Before I travel. Plus, I have to pack up my food and stuff. Just 'cause special diet. There we go. I've just been pushing it a little bit too much lately, I think, with the back. Just need to do more stretches and be a little less doing the things that aggravate it. It's always a thing. It's always the constant back and forth. All right, little highlight underneath, highlight up top, and we have an earring. Yeah, Yes, Luca has many evil plans. This is true. All right, but I did go a little bit. I had to cut off a little bit yesterday, so I'm going to just do a little bit more here. So just a little bit in the front here, kind of like we did the hat band. That thin ring around her hair is the same as this ring around the hat band. Same shape. Alrighty, a little bit. I'm going to glaze this. Every once in a while you get like your shadows and your highlights blocked in and you realize you're not gold enough. And that's when that mid-tone color comes in really handy. This one, because I can make a little bit of a glaze with that. And it's really yellow. I just paint it over the whole surface and it instantly picks it up and makes it gold. And I'll need to pop my white highlight one more time, but hey Trauma, nice to meet you. Thank you. Yeah, we're almost done for the day actually. The stream is just ending. But I stream well, I won't be back till Monday because I'm traveling, but we stream usually every weekday here on Reaper Miniatures. So we do a different model every day. We have a 6-model rotation. I'm gonna bring in my white again. There. So we've got a bunch of her gold done today. Plop that hat on her head and back out a little bit here so we can all take a look at her. Ah, that's a little bit too far. Let me get my palette out of the way here. There. So now the hat is almost done. I think she's around a 1/10. Reaper doesn't do too many busts, Trauma, and this was a special edition bust for ReaperCon last year, so I don't even know that she had a really assigned scale, but she feels like a 1/10 to me. It's about the same as my 1/10 scale busts. Yeah, we're almost to the point actually, guys, where we're going to attach this hat. I don't really need to do any persnickety stuff, just do all of the wool texture, but that stuff I think I can do with the hat attached. Thank you. But yeah, so we also work on Being Reaper Miniatures Twitch. On Monday, Trauma, we're going to be working back on our little, we work on a lot of 28s, 28mm. Usually like D&D adventuring type models, but I do some monsters also. So we're working on this Court Mage, and then on Tuesday we go and we're working on a monster. We've got a Centaur that we've been working on, so he's almost done. But yeah, I do this show every weekday. At 11:30 a.m. USA Central Time. And then, yeah, we do a rotation. So we do a bunch of different stuff. And I've got some more monsters queued up to do after we finish Mr. Centaur and the bust here. So those are our current big models that we've been working on. But yeah, nice to meet you. Hopefully you can make it back. Obviously, I'm doing a little bit more of an advanced paint job on this one. I do typically, like, kind of, I don't know, I do a bunch of things. Sometimes I'll point out if it's an easy technique for anybody to try, and sometimes I'll do something a little more advanced, and sometimes I'll do an advanced technique but try to simplify it, and yeah. We do a bunch of stuff. Bunch of stuff. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for tuning in today. I think we're making really nice progress on her. She's closer to done than I ever thought we'd get her. Yes, exactly. Oh, thanks. But yes. Yeah, off to Seattle with me now, and I'll be gone tomorrow and Friday, and then I'll be back with y'all on Monday, and we will be working on the Mage. So, yeah, have a great weekend since I won't see y'all, and I should have lots of puppy updates on the new puppy by Monday, because that'll be their 2-week. They'll be 2 weeks old. They should have little peepers opening up. Their eyeballs should be opening. That always gives them more personality. Yeah, yeah, I hope it's a good trip too. I mean, I love Seattle, I love Mount Rainier, and I love just, we're going to go for a hike and, go to Pike's Place Market, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be a really fun trip. Okay, everybody, I hope you all have a wonderful time, and I will see you again Monday.